So we're thrilled to have Michael O'Sullivan here. He is the esteemed author of the best-selling book, The Leveling. And I'd like to begin with the first question. But before I do that, I'd like to thank you, Michael, for being with us here today. We're very, very happy that you're here.
It's a pleasure. Thanks very much.
Right to the main idea of the book. What is the main premise of The Leveling?
So Robert, thanks again. So the premise is that globalization, which has driven so many wonderful things in the last 30 years, is now over. And we are going into a sort of a slightly noisy lost period for the next 5 years until the next form of world order emerges. And I think when that happens, it would be what I call a multipolar form of world order.
What are the signals that suggest to you that globalization is over?
So I think, first of all, on a day-by-day basis, we get more and more signals on an anecdotal basis, looking at trade, how people behave. If I quantify it, you look at the flow of trade, the flow of finance, people, ideas. They have been intense in the last 30 years. The world has been interconnected, but they're now slowing. And they show the world is becoming less interconnected and less interdependent.
What effect is that likely to have on global economic growth rates?
So I think underlying all of this is the reality that growth in an organic sense has been slowing. If you look at productivity levels in many countries, they're at multi-decade lows. And the world has needed more artificial boosting from taking on more debt, the help of central banks, to keep growth going. So I think what we need to do is really just stand back and ask ourselves, what are the drivers of our organic growth? And how can we get back to a level where those factors are beginning to fire again?
Super. And the corona crisis at the moment, which is really just is arresting economic activity in all parts of the world. Do you see that as something that is likely to dampen the speed of what you suggest will happen or accelerate it?
It will accelerate it. I mean, the coronavirus crisis is defined by its speed, its brutality, its tragedy. And in many ways, it accelerates the end of globalization. Just think what's happening. Trade is stopping, travel is stopping. Unfortunately, it's bringing out the worst in some leaders. What troubles me greatly is that this is the first crisis in 50 years when the big economies, the big regions and countries are not talking to each other, not collaborating. Everyone is doing their own thing, as it were. And that's a mistake.
Yeah, it's really insulating every economy quite clearly. Yeah. And if we look at things going forward, we'd have this massive decline, this violent decline in stock market prices, albeit from all-time highs, but this very, very quick decline in stock prices. How do you think this crisis is likely to unfold is the first question. And the last question is when will be a good time to buy into the fallen stock prices?
Yeah. I think markets reacted so quickly and so brutally because many of the really big things, the tectonic things, have been taking on more debt, profitability has been slowing, and the crisis has brought this into focus and had a big market impact. When to buy, it's too early to call the bottom. Those who do so, I think, are being complacent. And I think we will know we're at the bottom when we know the real impact of the closure of businesses on the credit markets and the lending markets. And when we have clarity on the credit crisis aspect of this, then we'll know where the market bottom is.
And how do you see this corona crisis unfolding? I know you wrote about 3 scenarios in your most recent Sunday blog. Can you share with us those 3 scenarios?
Of course. So the first one, which is the most optimistic one, which I call Easter, it's got about 20 or so percent probabilities that beyond Easter, we get clarity on on new drugs. We get clarity on the slowing of the rate of the spread of the disease, and of a return to work and normalcy. I don't think that's going to happen. And my main scenario, which I call summer, is that all this really happens by the midsummer, partly because it's going to be so difficult to lock down big populous emerging markets and the United States, partly because the credit aspect of this is unknown. And also, I think the simple dislocation from this and lack of trust is going to weigh as well. So it's probably going to be midsummer before we get that recovery beginning to set in. A more sobering and pessimistic scenario, which again I give 20% likelihood, is that it happens by winter. And if that is the case, then we are into, sadly, an economic depression. Unemployment will be high for a long time, and economies will struggle. So I hope that one doesn't come to pass.
Yes, I will hope so too. So more on an optimistic note to close things off. Looking ahead, Michael, what gets you most excited? Where do you see an opportunity? Are there any things that get you excited about the way the world is unfolding?
I think there's two things I'll stress. One is that generally in many countries, people are trustful of their governments, they're obedient, they're curious about medicine, and they will probably live healthier lives as a result of this, I hope. The second thing is we've seen massive variability in how the virus has affected different countries. Look at Germany compared to Italy, for example. And there's clear lessons to be learned from that, for institutions, investment in healthcare, human development, etc. So I hope those lessons are drawn out.
Super. Michael, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Author of the best-selling book, The Leveling. Thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you on the program again.
Thanks, Robbie.